When it's time to do some sewing on the Singer Heavy Duty 4411 sewing machine, you need to know some basics of how to set the machine up. So if you're wanting a straight stitch, this selection dial gets you to all the stitches. Just turn it to the stitch you want, but then you do need to set up stitch length and stitch width. So for example, a nice stitch length of 2.5 is that nice normal stitch length. It's a nice length. If you're working on some heavier fabric, you're going to go up to 3.5. If you're working on some finer fabric, drop that down to about 2 or a little less. Now you can turn this knob with the needle actually in the fabric. That doesn't matter. But make sure your needle is actually up and out of the fabric, always turning your hand wheel towards you when you are making a stitch or completing the stitch by bringing this all the way to the top before you turn the dial. So because that dial will move the needle and that can kind of bend it if it's down in the fabric. So if you're wanting a zigzag, let's go ahead and pick a zigzag. Stitch length, you pick how close together the zigzags are going to be, and then your stitch width needs to go from 0 to something. So if you want just kind of a middle-sized zigzag, watch, I'm actually making it wider while I'm sewing. So that's another one you can kind of change while you sew. I'm going to leave the needle in the fabric. Look how fun that is. And actually just kind of turn a little corner here. But I can also shorten the stitch length while I sew. So if I shorten it down to between 0 and 1, I'm going to get a nice pretty satin stitch. This is where you really like how fast this machine goes because you can really get it to go. Wow, look how fast it is. I love it. All right, so I want to show you this. We also have needle position. So if you are wanting the needle to sew a little bit on the more of the right side of the foot or the left side, there's 3 needle positions. Look how fun that is. So I shortened it, and then I really made it pretty when it was here. Now that's a wide zigzag. So if we didn't want it that wide, we could narrow it down with the stitch width. I want to go back to a straight stitch, so straight stitch, stitch length about 2.5, stitch width, put it to 0. That puts your needle back in the center needle position. And the last dial here, tension, most of the time just leave it at 4. If you've got a good quality thread in your machine and you have the same thread in your needle as you do in your bobbin, we don't need to adjust tension. It's already balanced for you. Then if you need some locking stitches, don't forget your reverse button. When you hold it down, we'll slightly go back and lock those stitches for you. So that's just a quick little how to pick different stitches. You can try all the settings for all the stitches, and you can have long ones and short ones, wide ones and narrow ones. Give it a try and see what you can come up with.